All right, we all set?
Come in.
I'd like to call the March 26th meeting of the Dartmouth School Committee to order. I'd like you to all invite you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag So I'd like to remind everyone that this meeting is going to be taped for airing on DCTV, and I'd like to ask you all to take a moment to silence your cell phones. Can we have a roll call, please, Ms. Kenter?
Dr. Jenkins,
Here.
Mr. Nunes,
Yep.
Kathleen Emerald. Here. Dr. Karafotis. Here. Christopher Oliver.
Here.
All right, so tonight we will start with the first item on our agenda, which is public comment on any item that is on our agenda for this evening. If anyone would like to say anything about any of the items on our agenda, I would invite you to step up to the podium to please state your name and provide us with your feedback. All right, so having no takers, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is approval of the minutes. I will entertain a motion for approval of the regular session minutes of March 12th, 2018.
So moved.
Second that.
All right, so I have a motion by Mr. Nunes, a second by Dr. Karafotis. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Next, I will entertain a motion to approve the executive session minutes of March 12th, 2018.
So moved, Madam Chair, with the stipulation they be held until the matter for which they were intended is completed.
Second?
All right, so I have a motion by Mr. Nunes, a second by Mr. Oliver. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, so next, we will hand it over to Charlotte for our student representative report.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. So on this past Monday, the 19th, Dartmouth High School students gathered in the gymnasium as part of the national movement to say enough to senseless acts of violence. The rally was entirely student-run, and the leaders encouraged their peers to commit to performing random acts of kindness over the next 17 days, documenting and tagging these acts with hashtag What's Your 17. Spring sports have begun with nearly 400 student athletes out for the spring season, so wishing good luck to all of our coaches and athletes as they begin. Last week, all 10th graders attended an assembly to kickstart the ELA MCAS exam, which begins tomorrow. Dartmouth High School's National Honor Society recently put on the Teacher Talent Show as a fundraiser for their international charity, Love 146. Congrats to the winners, Mr. Charest and Mr. York, for their impressive tennis skills. And finally, our debate team had a very strong showing at their recent competition in Needham. Students performed tremendously despite facing much larger teams. So congratulations to senior Noah DeRossi Goldberg for earning first place in the competition and junior Andrew Zhu for finishing fourth place. That's all I have today.
Great, thank you so much, and I know you are going to head on perhaps in your merry way to do all the homework that awaits you at home.
That's all right. Thank you.
Which we understand. So that brings us to the next item on our agenda, which is the Spotlight on Kids at Potter. Ms. Brooks, do you think everyone is here for your presentation? Would you like us to do the other presentation first?
Yes, only because we looked at the agenda and thought.
Well, that's what I figured. It looks like you have people coming, and we had put it on the agenda for 7 o'clock. So if you'd like, we will ask Ms. Townsend to come up first and do her presentation about the therapeutic program to provide services to elementary students, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to come to you today and present for a few minutes about our proposed classroom for the elementary students to begin, hopefully, upon approval, in September of 2018. So the focus of my presentation is really to talk to you a little bit about the brain-based classroom, what it is and how it's come to be, and then go a little bit into details about what that might look like for the classroom that's being proposed for Dartmouth. So just to kick off a little bit, one of the questions, I know that often comes up is why now and why such a program would be needed. And so the work around brain-based therapeutic teaching is not as new as one might think. It's important, I would like the committee to know that we've actually begun some work around brain-based strategies 3 years ago for our elementary teachers and elementary teacher assistants when we began offering professional development on this topic with Dr. Carolyn McKerney. And she provided, and is still providing, the third year of a 4-part series around brain-based teaching and strategies and how they can help our students succeed. We do know there's quite a bit of research and data that there's both a statewide and nationwide increase in the number of students who present with significant emotional disabilities that prevent them from accessing the classroom. And what we also know in regards to that data is that there's an increasing number of elementary school students. So the trends that were noted, I would say even 15, 20 years ago, that were more prevalent in some of the secondary grades, what we've seen more recently is a huge increase in our students who are younger and younger. And I just think it's important to note that the nationwide trend is occurring in Dartmouth as well. So Dartmouth has been no different in some of the things we've been seeing, very much mimic what we're seeing statewide and nationwide in regards to social emotional learning. So just to give a very brief overview of a brain-based therapeutic classroom, Dr. Kevin Plummer has really done a lot of work on the topic. He's been at the forefront of the work. Certainly, he does not work alone, and he's worked with several colleagues to develop some of the strategies and approaches that he's created. He actually, I believe, started his work on the brain-based therapeutic approach in and around the year 2000. He had published several articles kind of between 2003 and 2006 that were disseminated around this topic and has only been refining it since then. And his theory and his idea, which I wholeheartedly agree with, is that we need to consider a different educational approach when we're thinking about students who have moderate to severe self-regulation issues that would be as a result of either emotional, behavioral, social, and in some cases, some academic deficits. And so, of course, what we all know, and there's nothing about what Dr. Kevin Plummer has said that I don't think we all agree with already, which is that students need a supportive learning environment when they have these needs, and we need to consider therapeutic interventions that actually align with what happens in the brain when the brain is reacting in such a way that it's responding to something like trauma or an emotional disability. It actually does hardwire the brain differently, and so we need to be therapeutic in our approaches and teach a little bit differently. So this is very much, there's a ton more information than what's on this slide, but a lot of what guides brain-based therapeutic work is what we call the 4 R's. And what I can say is that the 4 R's are absolutely present in the work we do already every day. The 4 R's are embedded, I think, in good teaching all across the district on a daily basis. And essentially what Dr. Plummer is saying is that the 4 R's for the particular students who are struggling in this way just need to be done at a much more rigorous time frame. So instead of, perhaps a few times over the day having recognition, they might need recognition every few minutes due to their disabilities. So the first R is routine, and we all know that routines are necessary for actually rewiring the brain. So that when a routine is explicitly taught, reviewed, and expressed, it actually does help the student learn what it is they need to do, and it does change some of the rewiring in their brains. The second R is relationship. We know all students have strengths and talents, and it is through our positive relationships with students that those strengths can be recognized, and students can feel that self-esteem that many times they may not be feeling throughout their entire day, but certainly in the classroom they can really be reinforced by that positive relationship. The third R is recognition. We know that reinforcement should be fluid and continuous, and we want to make sure that our feedback is both authentic and concrete, that it happens often, that students really feel recognized for all that they can do well. And then the fourth R is what we call reset, also is sometimes called restore. They are the same R. So whether you call it reset or restore, it is actually well known for those who do significant research on the brain that when you are either overwhelmed, dysregulated, in a bad mood, your brain actually recruits what they call mood congruent memories. So your brain will actually link back to other times when you were equally overwhelmed, equally frustrated, equally anxious, which actually adds to the intensity of your current moment. So we need to make sure that there's an opportunity in the restore, that we distract the student with a different predetermined task, which actually shifts their thinking and allows them to get away from that brain mood congruent memory. So I would like to, share with the committee, and I know, I've had some wonderful conversations with some of you and had the opportunity to sit down, but I wanted to, be clear that we did link this classroom very much to our current strategic plan, which I've been fortunate enough to be part of our current strategic plan. I was here in Dartmouth to assist with the development with it. And this program is directly linked to our access and equity objective, and more specifically, the second initiative under that objective, and this is a direct quote, to expand and enrich current systems and practices to support the academic and social and emotional well-being of all learners. I think it's been very well known in my 4 years here. Certainly, I see it every day, the core belief of everyone here that all means all, and we're here to educate all learners and do what we can do to meet the needs of all learners. So I feel truly privileged to be part of such a community. So a little bit about the nuts and bolts of the program. So this is a single classroom. So it is would be one classroom. So it would serve students who are enrolled second through enrolled fifth graders. Students would have IEPs, and their primary disability would be emotional impairment. Their disability would present significant social or emotional challenges that impact their ability to successfully function in the school environment. And academically, the students in this classroom would be on or close to grade level. Being that their primary disability is emotional, many times, not always, but in many of the cases, we do find that students are very bright and academically capable of the rigorous standards that are set forth in our district, and we want to be very clear that we would maintain those rigorous standards in such a classroom, making sure that our curriculum is being addressed while still providing therapeutic work for these students so that they can access that curriculum. The program would provide specialized instruction in accordance with students' IEPs. As you know, an individual education program is an individual plan for each student, so it is not 100% that every student would need all of these goals, but at any given time, students might need an IEP goal in either behavior, emotional regulation, social skills, and again, if they do have some sort of a delay in ELA or math, they would have IEP goals for that as well. But it is not an automatic that students would receive all of those services. It would be based on their individual needs. And the same goes for related services. Therapy such as speech therapy, occupational therapy, adaptive phys ed would only occur for students whose education program requires it, that they have been eligible for said service. And we do not have a guarantee that every child who has an emotional disability also has needs and related services. So they may or may not receive those therapies. We've done a lot of planning for the program. We've done a lot of thought in terms of the development. We do have South Coast Educational Collaborative consulting with the program. They are the organization that started to provide the PD around brain-based therapeutic work. So it was a 3-year strand, so teachers and teacher assistants, pre-K through 5, had the opportunity to register for this PD either in 2016, 2017, or 2018. At the end of this year, we will have over 100 elementary staff who have gone through this training. It is not all of the staff, but we feel really excited about how many teachers and teacher assistants and related service providers have already gone through the training or will be finishing it up this May. Another piece of planning that we've done this year, which has been a concerted effort around the brain-based therapeutic model, is we've created something called clinical services meetings. Those are monthly meetings with Dr. Carolyn McKerney as well as our out-of-district and clinical services administrator, Lori Jodwin. She's here in the audience today. I want to recognize her for her amazing work with these clinical services meetings this year, because in each of the schools, all 6 buildings actually, there has been work done in terms of sharing some of these brain-based strategies, having administrators and clinicians talk about them, go out and try them in the field, and report back the following month. So that's been really exciting. We have formally created an agreement with Dr. Carolyn McKerney as our official consultant to collaborate with district administrators around the program. So she will stay actually as a consultant throughout the entire first year of implementation, providing direct professional development as needed, all of the training of the teachers and teacher assistants that are working in the program, as well as any other teachers or staff that work with this classroom. She's been an invaluable asset to us thus far, very open, and has spoken so positively of all of the schools as she's been going through these clinical services meetings this year. So that's my final slide. I leave you with a Maddie Stepanek quote: "Unity is strength. When there is teamwork and collaboration, wonderful things can be achieved." It is certainly one of my favorite quotes. I know this was a brief overview, but at this time, I'd be happy to answer any of your questions about how this program can better serve our students and further promote our core belief of all means all. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Mr. Oliver?
Thank you, Dr. Jenkins. So first of all, thank you for the presentation. I think at least for me, it helped provide some clarity. And I think it also helped provide some clarity for everyone, some of those people in the audience, as well as those people who may be watching at home.
Thank you.
That being said, I don't think there's any doubt, at least not in my mind, and I'm sure a lot of you in the audience will agree with me and my colleagues, that this is a program that this district needs, I think, without a doubt. I don't think anyone will argue with that. My only concern is I just want to make sure that there's follow-through working with, and I'm sure this has already taken place, but follow-through with the Quinn administration, with the Quinn staff, since the Quinn Elementary School is the school that'll be based in. So can you just talk a little bit about working, the collaboration with the Quinn staff and some of the service providers here?
Absolutely, thank you. So I haven't had an opportunity to meet with a Quinn focus group. I want to recognize Kathleen Bolton, she's here in the audience too, so has been a phenomenal asset as a fantastic occupational therapist, but also as a Quinn staff member to organize a focus group who I had an opportunity to meet with. I thought it was a very well-represented group because it really thought about every single person who may be part of this program, from that piece of related services through classroom, special education, general education, specialists such as, there was a representative from the art, music, or health, or PE department. So I thought it was really well-represented. It was an excellent meeting. We had an opportunity to really address, any questions, and I certainly would be happy to reconvene with that meeting. In terms of work with the administration, Dr. Carolyn McKerney has had some meetings with Kyle and Lori and myself. That work is not done either. This is obviously all, I know it's not quite on the agenda yet, but it's proposed for the budget to be voted on tonight. So again, we're really hoping in terms of the posting for the classroom, for the special education teacher who would service these students. Our hope is to have that posting out. Again, the budget becomes a little more of a reality, we'd like to get that out. And Carolyn is ready, willing, and able to start that work and continue that work that we've already done. But we do meet quite often. She actually met with Lori and myself today, just very quickly, for an hour in the morning before she headed out to her clinical services meetings. And so, absolutely, I think it's continued work, and she'll be a key part of some of the professional development and the training.
Okay,
Yeah.
that sounds good. My personal opinion is let's keep students in the least restrictive environment. I think this program gives Dartmouth students an opportunity to stay in district, in which otherwise we may have to find an outside placement for them. So you have my support on this.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And I appreciate that.
Other comments, Carol?
Hello.
Hello.
Good evening. One of the things that I've spoken about before was the fact that the program's going to be here at Quinn. And I understand the whole reasons why.
Sure.
But again, I think that's putting a lot onto a particular staff. Also, as I was reading, trying to find out more information about, this class for emotionally disturbed youngsters, I found that, they said continually throughout the whole thing that at each level, from your staff to your students to your parents, there has to be the outreach to help them understand the class, what it's all about.
Sure.
Sometimes people have questions, and they can be easily answered when the opportunity is there for them to sit down and talk to you. That's the big thing I hear, and that the support at this particular school for the number of SPED classes you have. I really would like to talk to you about that at some point.
Sure.
Regarding the class itself, I'm going to end my little presentation with a quote from a Mary Beth Hewitt. And it is, and I agree with it, students with ED do belong in regular schools. If we are to prepare our children for living and working together as adults, we must create environments that teaches them how to live and work together when they are children. However, we are doing everyone an even greater disservice if we don't give staff and students the knowledge, skills, materials, and personnel necessary to be able to address the needs of the students with disabilities. And I think we've got to look at all,
Of course.
It's a lot of pressure. I mean, even on the administration, if there are problems with different students and the teacher needs some help from them, you can't spread them all out.
Right.
There are a number of the questions I have, but I'd like to get together with you personally and
Sure.
just go over them with you.
That would be lovely.
But
Yeah,
we do
absolutely.
need this class. Oh, I know, I wanted to ask you, how do you determine who goes into this class?
So that's a great question. So I'll scale back and kind of phrase it within the process of the IEP process and, what an IEP is. So when a student is either initially evaluated to be considered for special education or they're part of a reevaluation, and even annually when testing is not done, there are 3 stages to an IEP meeting. The very first stage is to determine eligibility. So if testing was done, those tests are reviewed, gone over, and then we determine whether the student is eligible. The second stage of the meeting is the development of the IEP. So at that point, we do not consider location, spots, classrooms. We actually write what it is that the student needs in order to be successful, what services, what supports, what accommodations, what goals. And the third and final step is the discussion of placement, and that is always done in that order. Step 1, eligibility, step 2, development of the IEP, and step 3, placement. So in terms of any question about the who's, whether students have had experiences through general ed first, whether they have had experience from out of district, that really is not what we frame our meeting. We frame our meeting in this IEP has just been developed. What is the least restrictive placement that this IEP can be held? And then we make a placement page for it. If and only if the brain-based therapeutic classroom at Quinn is the least restrictive environment for that IEP that was just developed, then that's what we would put on the table. We wouldn't put it on the table for any reason other than that. It would have to be that the services that are outlined match up with what could occur. Certainly, if the IEP that was developed for a particular student, whether they have an emotional disability or any other disability, if the services that are proposed in that step 2 are such that the program, or the classroom rather, here at Quinn could not meet that service delivery model, then we could not and would not propose that placement. So if we consider those 3, I guess the answer is which students, I guess, it would depend on, and those decisions are made annually. So even at an annual review, you might not have formal testing, but a team is ultimately saying at the annual review, step 1, student is still eligible. Even if they didn't do new testing, the student continues to be eligible unless they're tested out. Step 2 is that now you're going into the development of the IEP, and step 3 is placement. So there's no minimum length of time a student might need this classroom. There's no maximum length of time. It truly is an individual process.
And the teacher does most of the therapeutic work?
So-
Does the teacher do the therapeutic work?
Yep, so we don't, so when we say therapeutic here, like how I've mentioned it, it's not therapeutic. Some people think it's therapeutic in the sense of, you know, a clinician all day long, like in a hospital or more of a mental health site. It truly is the therapeutic work, I believe, and I see it every day, that general ed teachers do therapeutic work every single day. When you consider the 4 Rs, what the 4 Rs are, yes, the special educator in this classroom would be doing a lot of therapeutic work, but not in the traditional sense of maybe therapy, you know, what we,
Right,
you know,
right. No, I
but it's
understand.
certainly therapeutic work, yes, the teacher, as well as the teacher assistants and all of the providers for the students.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Hammerl?
Yeah, and sorry. So it sounds like, sorry. Thank you, you asked really good questions. But it sounds to me like, so there probably are children that are in classrooms that, you know, who are always at the principal's office. And potentially, they may or may not have, or in the process of being sort of identified as qualifying with an emotional, you know,
Disability, right.
disability.
Right.
And that when thinking through the behavioral, you know, what's the word that I'm looking for? Like not punitive, thinking more of a therapeutic way where the brain work that you talked about, that
Exactly.
a child's not sitting there trying to misbehave.
Yeah.
That child is really struggling so
Yeah.
much to stay on task and stay and learn.
Absolutely.
And they just can't get over it.
For any
that
number
without-
of reasons,
Okay.
yes.
And so it sounds like that probably, in one of the papers that we got, it said like 4 to 6 potentially. That would sort of be maxed
Yeah.
out.
Right, so we would not anticipate this classroom for next year, certainly, and probably in future years, to have more than 6 students. I wouldn't feel comfortable saying exactly, you know, how many students for September, just because there is some work to be done as far as, you know, different team meetings that haven't been held yet, and of course, we
Right.
would not discuss those in detail at school committee
Sure.
regardless. And certainly, you know, to be respectful of, you know, the confidentiality of students, but I do want to circle back to what you said, which are, you know, they weren't in the slide, but one of the things that Jessica Minahan has always said, and I adore Jessica Minahan and her work, is that all behavior is an undeveloped skill. And one of the things that Dr. Kevin Plummer has often said is that misbehavior is not intentional. And if we consider those two things, that it's not intentional, that no child wants to be perceived as such, and that every behavior, regardless of how it presents outwardly, is really an undeveloped skill. Therapeutic classrooms address that by figuring out what is the undeveloped skill, how do we tap into it, and how do we turn that around. So,
But would this potentially look like, this is clearly a hypothetical, it might look like a 45-day sort of evaluation setting for the child? I know.
I mean, it could, so it wouldn't be an impossibility that might be considered for an individual student or two. I wouldn't see it being used quite often as such.
Regularly as that, yeah.
But as a classroom, and to be honest, that would be true of any one of our specialized programs. You know, we currently, you know, in theory, you know, PASS or PALS, not that they necessarily have been used as such, but if there's something that's provided in a specialized program that we would want to conduct specialized evaluations within that program, a team would have the opportunity to do that, the ability to do that.
And thank you for meeting with me. I know
Oh,
I've
of
taken
course.
up a lot
Happy to
of
do
your
so.
time prior to the meeting, and so I appreciate that. One question I did have that I wrote down so substitutes, so
Sure.
subs, TA, teacher, how are you, how is the program planning to sort of prepare for those situations when the teacher is out sick or?
Absolutely. So we have given a great deal of consideration to this. Obviously, the students in this classroom, continuity is key, consistency is key. Having their appointed teacher and teacher assistants has a lot to do with their success. So we would follow the current model for all of our specialized programs is that the TAs who are in the classroom become the teacher if it's a teacher who is out, for example, then the teacher one of the two teacher assistants would become the teacher, and then we would have a substitute TA who would kind of fill that slot. That just helps with the rituals, the routines of the
Right.
day. And then certainly, we would ensure that those that we're bringing on board, even if they haven't had the full-on training of brain-based therapeutic work, that they at least adopt the philosophies. And what we truly find is that it's not necessarily a certification or, something that's on a piece of paper. It's really that person or people to just really reach out and just, tell students that they're great, that they're doing great work, that they're smart, that they're beautiful, that they're cherished, and that has made all the difference. And so that's something we find in our subpool. So, but I would say that definitely if the teacher is absent, we would want the teacher assistant who knows the routine to step up and to the extent possible.
That makes a lot of sense. And then my last question right now, I think, is my concern is, now this is proposed to be a age span.
Yes.
So for those kiddos that may enter the class who are 4th or 5th grade.
Right.
My concern is like moving up to the middle school. So is there a plan in place already to sort of, because I do know you could get as much PD, but if it doesn't sort of like really infiltrate your heart and you don't really understand it, you kind of could get caught up in going back to your old routines. Has there been a plan in place, or is there a plan to sort of address those kids that are on the end
Who are
grade
kind of aging out of the
this,
5th grade.
aging out of the 5th grade to
into
go
the-
into the middle school?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Thank you. So honestly, we do not currently have a program at Dartmouth Middle School that does all of what I just described. So we don't, at this point in time, have such a model. Our hope and our goal, I should say rather, is to build, the therapeutic model so that when students are requiring that through, that we would we have a shared commitment to ensure that this model can be sustainable over time and that would be sustained in higher grades. And I do think that would be, as you said, probably most important for those students who are in 4th, 5th entering the program. What we do know about brain-based work is that if, for example, it was a 2nd grader who were to start, many of them, by the time they're in 5th grade, are able to go even less restrictive than this and go back into a less restrictive co-taught general ed model. So it really depends, obviously. For those 5th graders, perhaps 1 year of therapeutic might not be enough, and they might need more. But we are finding that many students who are, even without having this classroom, students who are needing that therapeutic level in 2nd are often back to us in 4th or 5th once they've had those few years. So I definitely think, and I know Dr. Gifford has had some thought into how that might be developed down the line.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation. and
You're welcome.
Thank you very much for the time a couple of weeks ago. I
Thank
appreciated
you.
it.
I appreciate it.
But it enlightened me quite a bit and answered a lot
Good.
of my
I'm
questions.
glad.
And I appreciate that. But we talked a little bit about students being able to not so much age out, but work out
Work-
of the program.
right.
If you could explain that a little bit.
Absolutely. So like I said, the decision, those 3 steps of eligibility, development of a plan, and placement are done on an annual basis. They're not done every 3 years. Some people, there's that misconception out there that that's only done every 3 years. Every single year, if a student is at their annual review, is found that the services that you wrote on that step 2 are much less services, that they do not require therapeutic work, that they are able to be successful with perhaps some co-taught services or something that is in a less restrictive classroom, then as soon as that's written in step 2, the placement can no longer be this classroom. The placement has to be the least restrictive to meet that IEP. So at any given time, any student in the classroom would have an annual, at least, opportunity to show progress in their goals and show such growth that they would be able to exit this classroom and go into something more supportive. Thank you.
Thank you.
So my only question is, I think this is a great program. My mother was in charge, she was an assistant principal who's in charge of special education in
wow.
her schools. And so I used to volunteer in these elementary classrooms. And so we didn't have brain-based therapeutic classrooms at that point in time, but I could see sort of the emotional trauma that a lot of these children have undergone, and so how important it is to serve them early. Early intervention is
Absolutely.
critical.
Absolutely.
My one question is sort of we're thinking it's 4 to 6. What is the capacity of this classroom, right? Because what if demand, right, starts to be more than 4 to 6? Because if one student's in there and they have the same IEP, that other student is then sort of entitled to that same. So what happens if that sort of demand grows?
So by capacity, just clarifying question, by capacity, do you mean enrollment numbers?
Right,
or
like what's the
capacity?
highest that you could serve in this classroom? You're thinking? You think there's 4 to 6 that are going to be in there, but what's the biggest that it could get with the staffing levels that we have?
Oh, so I can answer that question, but I'm going to answer it, and then I'm going to quickly say that we would not actually approach this. So staffing level-wise,
Right.
regulatorily speaking,
Right.
it would be 1 teacher, 1 TA would be 12 students.
Okay.
1 teacher, 1 TA.
Right.
Dartmouth has never done that. I am not proposing that for this classroom, as you can see. So at no point would we ever reach the capacity with this level of staffing that we would come near. If with 1 teacher and 2 TAs, it would be 16 students. So I try not to get bogged down in regulations because that's not where I come from. That's not where we're coming from.
Right.
But we would never be in any sort of regulatory trouble.
I guess, right, but
So-
my concern is not that we would hit regulatory, because we're not gonna do that.
Right.
My concern is we're all of a sudden gonna have 10 students, and now we're gonna need another TA, and how are we
Yeah.
gonna pay for that? That's my
Yes.
concern. Because once you have 6 students, right, 7, 8, 9 come in, you can't say, whoa, we don't have the staff for that, because they are entitled to be educated in the least restrictive
Absolutely.
environment. So my concern is that we're gonna find ourselves in February, and we're gonna go, uh-oh, we need another TA, and then where are we gonna find the money for that? So that's just what my
I
concern
agree with you,
is.
and that may happen. So if the need were to arise, if the classroom were to blossom to 9 next year, I can tell you it is highly, highly unlikely. But since nothing is impossible, I would say that if this classroom were to have 9 students in it, for example, that additional support would be required in the classroom. And I agree, that would be a puzzle in the middle of February to have to work that out. So to be forthright and honest with you, that's something we would absolutely have to look at. It's not, like I said, it's not something that I would see really ever needing, much more than, I think the level of need for students who require this level of therapeutic work, historically, just trend-wise over the past 4 years, there's never been more than 6 off the top of my head. I mean, 6 has almost been the upper cap. But yes, if it were to suddenly blossom to 9, and because it is students' rights to have it, if it's least restrictive, then we'd have to revisit staffing.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's
a big if, but yes, we would have to.
Okay.
Just to piggyback on that, that is exactly what happened when we introduced the autistic program. I think people realized that Dartmouth had an excellent program, and so let's move to Dartmouth.
Sure.
We did. We had
absolutely.
like an explosion.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. And I wouldn't negate that possibility. I will say that not every student who qualifies for an IEP under emotional disability would automatically be in this program. We have students who are served very well in a much less restrictive environment and do very well pre-K through 12. And they have diagnosed emotional disabilities and, or they've been identified with that category and they wouldn't require this level. So I think, there is a distinction because obviously, as you know, nationwide anxiety and depression are both on the rise for students in pre-K through 5. And if every student who presented with anxiety or depression, we'd really be talking numbers that more than tip the scale I just shared.
Right.
So they really have to show that they are truly, requiring much more substantial pull-out specialized services.
And I think if you don't mind, it probably, you're really talking about those kiddos who just have such significant dysregulation.
Right.
They may be just about grade level,
Right.
passing. They're not
Yes.
in risking failing or flunking or what have you, but more that you see a pattern probably where
Absolutely.
it is impeding their ability to learn. Because the goal of any program like this, I would think, is to have kids access the curriculum
Absolutely.
to the maximum
Absolutely.
extent possible.
And because students who would be considered, their academic needs would not be such that they were many, many years below grade level, because that would actually be, if there were behaviors around that, that would be a function of a different type of disability that would not be a match to these peers. So we would have students working on grade level or close to grade level work. Also, when they're ready to reintegrate to something less restrictive, they haven't lost all of that wonderful curriculum for them to be successful in something less restrictive.
And I understand that, but to get back to Dr. Karafotis' point, if you're living in another district, maybe in Westport or New Bedford right now, and your child, if you lived in Dartmouth, would be placed out of district, and you'd be placed out of district and you were in Westport, you might choose to live in Westport because it doesn't matter where you live, right? But if now Dartmouth starts providing these services in district, right, and you have access to our curriculum in our schools, we suddenly become very attractive to students who are entitled to these services, as you mentioned, which has happened with other programs. And so that's just my concern about, I do think it's needed and necessary and good to serve these students in district. I just worry about growth and sustainability because we don't want to crowd out other things.
Right.
So I think we just have to keep an eye on that.
I think that's a good problem to have, though.
Yeah, for sure. Right.
And I also think, the theory that, and I know she's not here, so I don't want to speak of Dr. McKerney, her not being in the audience, but certainly I don't think Dr. McKerney would be willing to be a consultant for a program in the thinking that every single student that would ever require one of her programs would automatically go into here. I think there's room for both, and there's needs for both, and it wouldn't necessarily eliminate, in certain cases, out-of-district programming for students. If that's what they require, they need to stay in the least restrictive for them. And I don't think this would at any point be kind of the end game for all elementary students, that they may not still require something more. It really is an individual decision, and should a student require more on their plan than what this particular placement can provide, we need to put another placement on the table. And we understand that, and we're committed to that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, so I know Ms. Brooks and Mr. Porter are outside. I'd like to invite, if there's any parents in there, can you tell them that there's some seats up front so they can come see their kiddos? Okay, they're all set. So why don't you come on up? Mr. Galashaw is going to get you set up, yeah?
Aw. Oh, God, so cute.
We'll see. Good evening.
Good evening.
Tonight's spotlight is on the students of Potter School. The students at Potter look very...
Can I just
Oh,
interrupt?
sorry.
For the people in the doorway, there are seats right up front, so please come up front.
Don't be afraid.
See people holding cameras
be
back
bashful.
there. If you want to get a video of your kid, please come up front. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay.
Mrs. Brooks.
No, there's another mom,
Okay.
if she wants to come up to
Yeah,
get
if anybody wants to
pictures.
come up to
All
take
right.
pictures, there's seats up here in the front row.
Front.
Thank you. Okay.
That's
Yes,
good.
sorry.
Tonight's spotlight is on the students of Potter School. The students at Potter School look very similar to the students of Cushman, DeMello, and Quinn. Like each of our schools, we have students who are prepared each day for learning opportunities ahead. We also have students where the thought of the thing we call school is a challenge and daunting. It's our job to create an atmosphere where, despite the challenges, our students want to come to school, want to stay in school, and want to find their link to the opportunities to the path that the school will lead. There are days, and then there are days, when even our most dedicated staff members feel challenged. So last year, we asked them, why is Potter School your happy place? And the artwork we created with their responses sits in our showcase window, welcoming our staff, students, and guests to Potter School. So as we approached this task, preparing to spotlight our students, we asked them, why is Potter School your happy place? And this video will show you their response.
I think that that my teachers are very important and my principals are important and everyone in school is important to Potter School.
That it's okay to make mistakes. And I think what makes Potter School special is I actually look forward to coming here because I like how the teachers and the students interact with us, and
all the teachers here are very nice, so I think that's why.
The teachers are lovely and special to me.
Well, the teachers make it special, and the staff, they're all really helpful and friendly, and they make your day pretty great. The teachers.
Because of the nice teachers.
I like Potter School because my teachers are so nice to me.
Nice job writing that journal today, so legible I could read it. Way to go.
That people are cool and kind. Learning everybody to be kind. People are always nice to people, and they always care what they do, and they don't care what they look like. They just care about their friends and all of the teachers. They're kind and they're special. All the people that are kind at Potter School. It's fun, there's great activities, and all the teachers have great experience.
that we get a lot of education here.
Learning new things every day, and then making new friends. I get to learn and have good education. All my friends and all the teachers are helping me learn more, and it's fun to stay here. With all your friends? Well, everybody's being together is so fun.
like friends instead of being mean to each other for no reason.
My friends. When you have a problem, maybe at home, they let you talk about it here and solve your problem.
That's really kind and everyone's very good and safe.
Special because there's no bullying and all the teachers are nice. And some people stand up for each other and no one's backed away at Potter School.
I think because people act really nice around people.
It's the best school.
Go.
Best school! We love Potter School!
It's special to me because we get pajama day and prizes catch me at my best or any compliments from our teachers or anybody around the school. And it's important to me because since I've been in this school, everybody has been really kind to me and I like it.
Your feeling brain takes hold and you could flip your lid. Stop, you got to think it through. Just calm it down like this. Stop and then you're feeling calm down. Stop and then you're feeling calm down. Stop and then you're feeling calm down. Stop and then you're feeling calm down.
Give me an O. O. Give me a T. T. Give me another T. T. Give me an E. E. Give me an R. R. What does that spell?
R. P is for practicing skills. Positive. Perfection. Patient. Professional. O is for one of a kind. Okay to make mistakes. Original. Open-hearted. Open-minded. T is for trustworthy. Thankful. Thinking hard. T is for tried and true. Tolerant. Teachers are great. E is for extraordinary. Equality. Educational. Exciting. R is for responsible. Reasonable. Respectful. Remarkable. That's why Potter is our happy place!
at our assemblies, our fifth graders are always a part of our assembly, and this year we happen to have a rapper. So he has been rapping something for our assembly, so he rapped a little something for you tonight.
Potter is happy. Potter is cool. This is why we like going to school. We have smart kids that learn from great teachers. When you walk into school, there is someone there to greet you. Mrs. Brooks and Mr. Porter keeps the school in perfect order. If you want to be happy and learn the best, then Potter School is what I strongly suggest.
Well, Heidi, I think these are the least amount of words you and I have ever spoken at a school committee presentation. So it truly is a spotlight on kids. First of all, we just want to say a special thank you to, and a round of applause for Sandy Chicker. She put that whole video together. So now you have heard from the students at Potter as to what makes our school a happy place for our kids. What struck Heidi and I after viewing the video last week was that the children really recognize that that's something that makes their school special. It's not the walls, the playground, it's not the buses that bring them to and from school every day. Instead, that's something that they all got. It's the people. And for many of our youngsters, it is their teachers. Last Friday, Heidi, Carrie, Paul, and I, we went to a DESE conference on safe and supportive schools. And the familiar theme that was highlighted in all those sessions was that the importance of relationship building with students. When a child feels loved, protected, and knows that they have a trusted adult in their corner, they will succeed. So at the end of the day, these students may not remember what their scores were on the MCAS, but they will remember the people that made Potter School not only their happy place, but that Potter School became their foundation for a prosperous, fulfilling, and may I say, happy life. And for us, that's the true measure of success. Thank you for listening to us tonight.
Is there any comments?
I'm not quite sure how you...
Sure.
Karafotis.
Hello. I just wanted to say that, of course, it was a great evening listening to your children present what's important to them at Potter School. I also know that it's not just something you say, but something you live every day at Potter. And you've been really, Heidi, and for quite a few years now, this has been your thing that you've really wanted to develop. And I think you've certainly, with everybody's help, your staff, I'm sure with Mr. Porter, your students, this is great job. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mr. Oliver.
First of all, I have to compliment the rapper and the bebopper as well. Great job, boys. Also, great job with the video, Ms. Chica. A wonderful presentation. Thank you to both you, Mr. Porter, you, Mrs. Brooks. It just goes to show you when you put your heart and soul into something, anything's possible. Mm-hmm. And I just a wonderful, wonderful job. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, the video, hearing from teachers and students, and just you both of you just have such a way of instilling such a wonderful culture in your school. It really speaks to just that social, emotional learning. You care so deeply to enrich these students to realize that it's not, what's that quote that ends with, it's the impact how it's not you make somebody feel. And it's so true. It really lends itself to just health and happiness and longevity to really sustain in society. And just great job, kids.
Mr. Nunes?
I'm not quite sure how to follow that up. That's absolutely fantastic. The video, the presentation by the rapper and the bebopper type of deal.
So cool.
I love it. The book is fantastic with the updates. My congratulations to you. It's been interesting watching these, and it's the one theme, it's the students, it's the staff that put everything together, their heart and soul and livelihood into it, and it's, appreciated by this member and this committee.
Yeah, I would agree, and we call this a spotlight on the kids, but I think maybe when we started out, it was spotlight on schools. And it's great that we spotlight the kids, don't get me wrong, but what brings it all together is the staff and the people who work there. I had the great honor of volunteering in your school several years back, and I got to know a lot of the teachers and to see what a great school and environment it is, and that this really highlights it. So thank you for not only spotlighting the kids, but all of the people in your building. You guys are doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys wanna come get your books? Do they want to come get their books?
Nope, you may look at those.
Great, okay, fabulous, thank you.
The rap is actually in there, but he had such articulation in his rap.
That's great, thank you.
That was great. That was really good.
We're going to just wait a moment here while everyone sort of clears out and it quiets down a little, and then we'll move on to the next item on our agenda. I'm staring at Kristen's shoes. I'm convinced that she and I have the same shoes on.
Kind of serves as a nice reminder why we do it.
He's here, Doug, yeah. Yeah, it was great.
So informing, yeah.
He's got a notebook, too. I think he looks like he might be a reporter, too. Or might be.
Maybe. I don't know.
He's not writing anything.
No.
He does. The other guy has a little notebook. Okay, so next we're going to move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the consent agenda. And we have before us a request from DHS permission to participate in the International DECA Conference competition in Atlanta, Georgia from April 20th through April 25th.
So moved.
I'll second that.
All right, so I have a motion by Mr. Nunes, second by Dr. Karafotis. Are there any comments, questions?
Just best of luck to our
Yeah.
DECA students.
Right.
Yeah, it's great that they're
Much success.
going again, and so we hope they perform really well again. So, hearing no further questions or discussions, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so that motion carries unanimously. Next, we're going to move on to old business. We have the fiscal year 19 budget. Mr. Kiley, do you want to give us any updates here? I know we had our FinCom presentation. We can talk about that.
Sure. So we did. We met with the Finance Committee, and Dr. Gifford and I were up at the podium for an extended period of time, I would say. Yeah, more than an hour. Yeah. Answering their questions and talking about where we're going with this budget. In a sort of a different turn of events, there were actually some suggestions that we should add more to this budget, which of course we would like, but being realistic and understanding where the town budget currently is and the lack of funding available, and as far as I still know, the town budget overall at the moment being in a deficit, we're not inclined to do that. We do have a good plan in place. It's, gone through all our process, and we're, comfortable recommending that we move forward with that, so.
So I'll elaborate, because Mr. Oliver and I were both there, and the suggestion came up that, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, in the capital improvement plan about moving the radios forward, about whether there was any other school safety items that were on the list, and maybe because everyone's so concerned, we should put that forward now. But I think sort of the consensus there, at least among those of us that were there, and some other people in the town that I've talked to, that I do think we need to evaluate this very carefully, because we need to make sure that any investments we make are sustainable, that they are in fact the investments that we want to make. I think we have a good plan in place to keep our schools safe. And I also personally, I don't want to see us start adding things to our budget that we can't sustain, and then the town tells us in a year or two, oh, well, we can't give raises to your teachers. We need to sort of, be very careful, in my opinion, in evaluating where we are. I think we're in a good place right now. And so I think we can continue to look at this, and, in a year from now, if we identify some things that are priorities related to school safety, we can put them forward. But I think we're in a pretty good position now, and I don't think it's time to sort of put anything else forward in the budget, given the status of the budget in the town right now. Mr. Oliver, you want to add to that? And you were there as well.
Sure, I'll just quickly add, Dr. Jenkins, I want to I think we had a great open conversation with the FinCom, and Terry Ham's here sitting in from the FinCom, so thank you, Terry, for always being here. It's always nice to see you. But I think we did have a good conversation. It's great work being able to have those tough conversations and just be able to just talk about things and try to just walk through it and talk about it. And at the end, I would agree with Dr. Jenkins' perspective that I think the plan that we have in place right now is a good plan. I feel very comfortable with it. I think it's going to cover what we need to, and the one key word is sustainability, and down the road making sure that our offerings and what we're looking for is sustainable in the budget. So I'll just echo those words.
Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Like-
Mr. Nunes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I agree with you as far as, knee-jerk reactions or something of that nature, because I think you have to understand that if, the old adage, once you put a hammer through a wall, you own the wall type of deal. And, you've got to fix it type of deal. And you've got to make sure that, what you're doing in the long run is going to be feasible and operational. And I agree. I think, we're moving in the right direction. I think we're good where we are. I like, with the discussion with and we'll get into that with the CIP plan, but I think what we need to do is just stay, steer the course right now.
Yep. I would agree. I mean, this has been a long budget process with a lot of input from a lot of different people. And so I think we're pretty good where we are now. If there's not any further discussion, we have actually a series of motions that we need to make on the budget, because some of the members of our school committee can't participate. So what I'll do is I have this up in front of me that I'll go ahead and I'll read the motions, and then someone can move it. So our first motion that we're going to need someone to step up, because Mr. Nunes cannot make this motion, our go-to. I will entertain a motion to approve the fiscal year 19 budget appropriation for high school secretaries budget line 101.310.2210.0.3.025.210.8, and the amount of $161,057.20. All right, so Dr. Karafotis has made the motion, and Ms. Amaral has seconded. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. And abstentions?
I'll abstain.
All right, so that motion passes 4 ayes and 1 abstention from Mr. Nunes. Our second motion, and I hope that Ms. Genther will correct any errors that I make in reading them out loud. I'll entertain a motion to approve the fiscal year 19 budget appropriation for the Potter School classroom teachers, line 10.17.0.230.5.0.1.025.100.1, and the amount of $1,656,168.
So moved.
All right, so we have a motion by Dr. Karafotis, a second by Ms. Amaral. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions?
I will abstain.
Mr. Oliver, so that passes 4 ayes and 1 abstention from Mr. Oliver. I should have read the whole thing where Mr. Kiley says I included the account numbers, just for your reference. You got to put that at the top, Mr. Kiley.
Sorry about that.
Now
Next year.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the fiscal year 19 budget appropriation for the total budget, including those items voted individually, and the two previous motions in the amount of $41,268,738.95.
So moved.
I'll second that.
All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Oliver, a second by Dr. Karafotis. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone, and I want to thank Mr. Kiley and all of the staff and the building staff and the central administration staff for all the hard work that you've done in putting together this budget, and we'll hope we'll get some favorable action from town meeting.
I just want to ditto that. Thank you so much for all the hard work that goes on.
Thank you for your support. Appreciate it.
Okay, so next, Mr. Kiley, so with you, we're going to go over the revised fiscal year 19 to fiscal year 23 capital improvement plan.
Thank you, Dr. Jenkins. So we had voted this previously, and the change in the revised plan that's before you is to add the district-wide radio system. You know, after much discussion and continuous work with the police department and the fire departments, we've determined that this would be something best served to move forward with in the short term rather than next year, which is where it was originally slated in the capital improvement plan. So we did have some discussion already with the Finance Committee at last week's meeting, and they were very supportive of it as well, and I feel confident that the town will support this moving forward. So I'd hope that we would revise the capital improvement plan to include that in the FY19 request.
Yeah, and at the meeting, we did talk about this a bit, and Mr. Barnes indicated that there is some capital money that will be available at Springtown meeting, and so the hope would be that we would approve this at Springtown meeting. We typically do the majority of our capital improvement in Fall Town meeting, so that we can get this in place as soon as possible. And I happened to run into the chief as well, and he was very supportive of moving this forward. You know, he did note, as we talked about at FinCom, that there are some places in our buildings where reception is not great, and so this will create that redundancy so that there is good reception throughout our buildings. The other thing I'll note from the meeting with FinCom is I think that Mr. Barnes is hoping to at least appropriate a portion of the Memorial Stadium money in Springtown meeting that would allow us to get started on the design this summer, and even potentially maybe the lights this summer. Again, we don't have enough sort of free cash to appropriate the full amount. We'd have to wait for Fall Town meeting to that when we replenish our free cash, but I think he seems pretty positively inclined towards that, and we're hoping to get some movement forward finally on the field, starting at Springtown meeting, which would be great, because that would, if we could get the design done this summer and start on the lights, we could maybe do the field, knock on wood, next summer.
Yes.
Right, which would be great.
You can actually dig the field up the day after Thanksgiving. You can start the day after Thanksgiving.
Right, so it is really great to see some progress on this. Mr. Nunes?
Thank you. Quick question. You talking about the lights, you gonna try and redo the lights this summer? Or,
A lot depends on how much money we have.
Yeah, okay.
Our architects had said that there's been some favorable developments in terms of the lighting, so in terms of the LED cost, LEDs were significantly more expensive than more traditional lights. Our lighting is kind of dinosaur lighting, obviously. So our hope is to get to LEDs, which would have cost quite a bit more, but I think that gap is beginning to narrow.
Yeah.
So our hope is that we'll have enough to design and lights. But we want to phase this carefully and make sure it's done in the logical, order to get the whole project done.
Yeah.
So, but we're excited, and I know that we very much appreciate that the town seems committed to assisting in some way.
I think the big question mark at this point is that we're waiting for the bids for the police station and the library to come in. In order to start building those, they have to be we have to fully appropriate or have all the money sort of in hand and appropriated to pay for the entire project. So if the police station comes in higher than what we voted at the override, we're gonna need to appropriate towards that. Same as the library, if it comes in higher than what the town has put away. So that's what the uncertainty is right now about this, the free cash that's gonna be available at Springtown meeting. So I think those, you helped put those bids out, right? Those should be coming in,
The filed sub bids for the police station came in today.
okay, great. So we'll start to have a little bit more certainty in the next few weeks on that. Other questions or comments?
Could I just have a clarification
Dr.
on the
Gerbo?
district-wide radio system? What are we talking about?
So basically, what we're talking about is in each facility, we'll have a radio system and repeaters that can work with the same unit walkie-talkies, essentially, so that each school would have its own channel and its own units, but yet there would also be common channels that could communicate district-wide, and that the police and fire folks could access. Right now, none of that exists.
That's wonderful.
There's nothing like that, and there would be repeaters in the buildings that would make sure that there weren't dead spots. And then there are now spots
Okay.
where we just can't communicate from, so.
Thank you.
Do we need a motion, Mr. Kiley, or?
I would suggest, since we voted to, I believe
other
we
one.
voted the original
Yeah.
capital improvement
Okay.
plan, that we just vote to revise.
Madam Chair, make a motion that we revise the capital improvement plan for FY '19 through FY '23, which incorporates the district-wide radio system in the amount of $2,150,000 from the town, and for the Media Center Innovation Lab, $250,000 to be funded through the school choice funds.
Okay. Do you have a second?
I second that.
All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Nunes, a second by Ms. Amaral. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so that motion carries unanimously. Next, I'm going to hand
Thank
it
you.
over, thank you, Mr. Kiley. I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Roy to talk about school committee policy IKF, our graduation requirements for second reading and vote.
So we have policy IKF, graduation requirements, second reading and vote, as Dr. Jensen said. We made one small adjustment from the first reading based on the questions of the committee at our last school committee meeting. Mr. Tebow had his staff pull the data on the current freshmen and how many of them were enrolled in health at this point, and found only one student. So he felt comfortable recommending the combining of the PE and health for the class of 2021 as well into the 2.0, therefore releasing a 0.5 credit that was slid down into the elective category. So we ask for a second read and a vote tonight.
Any questions, comments?
I don't have any.
All right, so hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve school committee policy IKF and graduation requirements.
Second.
All right, so I have a motion by Mr. Nunes, a second by Dr. Carol Fotis. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so that motion carries unanimously. Thanks to everyone at the high school Ms. Roy, for all the work that you've done on the new schedule and getting these graduation requirements together. Next, do we want to do the update first or the summer sports camps next? Why don't we do the summer sports camps? Usually we do the sort of the news of the district last, right? So, Mr. Kiley, you want to talk to us about the summer sports camps?
Sure, I'd be happy to, Dr. Jenkins. So, summer sports camp, the plan is, with your authorization, to move forward in Norfolk Camp again this summer. That's similar in nature to what's been done the last couple of years. We last summer served 187 kids in a variety of activities, and had a successful summer. The camp this year would run from June 25th through July 27th. And we just hope that you will give us your approval to move forward and get it up and running again. We do have some space constraint considerations, since the middle school, the roof will be done, so we can't do it there. So we're working that out, probably at the high school.
Okay.
be the likely location, so.
And just, can you remind me, the profit, does that go back into the athletics department?
So it's been a small profit.
Yes, it's small, but
yeah,
I mean,
it's
the
been a
kids
small
are out
profit.
selling like candy bars and
Yeah.
popcorn and discount cards, so every little bit helps our
Right.
athletics teams, right?
Right, it does. And so it's been a very small profit that we've been making. At this point, we've left the majority of it in the summer camp account,
Okay.
which it's a small amount, so.
Right.
But it has purchased some equipment.
Okay. All right, great. Any questions?
I don't really have a question, just making sure that the schedule for like extended school year allows for some options for kids at least one of the weeks to participate, those kiddos that require the extended school year. I know in past years there's at least been a week of options
Yeah.
available.
And I believe that that's the plan, to be consistent with that again in this upcoming summer.
Thank you.
Okay, so, any other questions? All right, so I will entertain a motion to authorize the plan to host the summer sports camps for summer 2018.
So moved.
So a motion by Mr. Oliver, a second by Dr. Karafotis. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. All right.
Thank you.
Dr. Gifford.
Yeah, a couple of things. Last week, a number of us from central office attended the 13th Annual Women's Educational Leadership Conference, and the theme really focused on asking folks who in their lives touched them at one point and prompted them into leadership positions, and it was interesting to hear the different people who really, made a difference in their lives, and we just had the presentation from Potter, thinking about, once again, what impact someone, you never know, might have in your life to move you forward. So that was enjoyable. Just a reminder that the middle school Lion King production is happening next week. I believe it's Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. For your information, the high school is moving its term 3 by a week, so the term 3 will close on April 6th. That was a request by the high school admin due to the snow days and all of that, and MCAS starting, so to give them a little extra time. You heard mention about, from Charlotte, the high school's rally last weekend. Just as a reminder, we had safe and kind school rallies in all of our schools, assemblies, and the middle school had at that time asked first responders to attend, and they did thank them for their service during the kindness rally. And of course, all our elementary schools have so many of those rallies anyway, that it was just a continuation of the work that we already do. But really focusing in on what difference can we make in a student's life, or any child, by being friendly and kind and inclusive. So we are very happy with all of those. The high school has to have rescheduled its teacher Alice training drill because of snow. We're going on the third one, right? Yeah. Only cloudy. I teased Mr. Tebow by text when it snowed again. I said, how about July? But anyway, that's on for this week. So, and the middle school, some of the admin team will be attending to just observe, because they will follow suit. So they're looking forward to that. I want to give a shout out tonight. I thought Ms. Townsend did a fabulous presentation tonight, and she and Ms. Jodwin have worked so hard on the program, but I have to say, more and more impressed by Ms. Townsend's ability to lead that department and the changes that have happened, and she's just really done, I think, a phenomenal job, and she puts me to shame for the knowledge that she has, I'll tell you that much. So I'm very thankful for that. Ms. Oliveira had a number of meetings with all of the elementary schools the last 2 weeks, and all across the grade levels, all the grade level teams came together, and a great movement I think we've had. She's done a fantastic job moving the elementary schools to just come that much more consistent on what we're doing in reading, writing, and our science curriculum, and we're really getting to be on a really solid, same page, kind of thing, and that takes time. It takes time for teachers to let go of things that they're used to doing, to understand the standards, all of that, and the give and take from what Tracy was saying, from the teachers and the feedback. I think they've done a great job, and so we're very happy about that. I think you might have read something about Odie's Place, and I think I mentioned the last time about it. So a number of our schools did participate in creating thank you cards for first responders. The man picked them up. He was very, very pleased, and they're looking to deliver them to the police station, at least some of them, April 7th. And I know the Potter School and Middle already gave out cards or thanked their folks. But again, another community collaboration that they were very happy our students could participate. Ms. Roy and I went to an MCAS, the accountability system training this morning. It was very, very good. Sometimes you go to these DESE things and you're like, this one, Rob Curtin from DESE does a fabulous job really making a convoluted or complex system kind of understandable. So we have a lot of changes coming up with the accountability system. As you probably know, the high school is still using the legacy system. The rest of the schools are switching. So we'll be providing an update as we digest it a little bit more. The team chair training has been completed. Ms. Townsend's department has run that team chair throughout the year. And that was another important piece that was missing from what we normally do. So there is a few folks from each school that have been trained so that our chairing of our teams runs very effectively. And the last thing I just wanted to mention, I think, was, kindergarten registration is continuing, so getting all of those kids in. So the end of school is coming quickly, isn't it? Yeah. So that's it for me. Oh, yeah, all the scribbling. The art show is tomorrow night at Russell's Mills, 6 to 8, and then on Wednesday from 3 to 5. So if you can stop in, I'm sure the kids would appreciate it. All right.
All right, so for me, I just have one announcement. The Dartmouth Education Foundation grant application is now open. We are going 21st century. We now have a website, and everyone can submit their applications online. So that's at defma.org. You'll find information there. The deadline for those applications is May 1st. I know I've sent an email to all of the building administrators and central administration. So hopefully you'll share that with your staff. We're looking forward to some exciting proposals again this year. We're going to be doing things a little bit differently because the Community Foundation has changed some of its requirements due to an audit. The money is going to run through the schools at this point, but we will still be giving away money. So I just want to reiterate that. Even though it's going through the schools, we are giving you money. So please take a look. Again, it's defma.org. Does anybody else have anything, other matters that may not have been anticipated? Mr. Nunes.
Thank you, Madam. Just a couple of things coming up in the music department. The Color Guard Finals for New England Scholastic Band Association is this Saturday in Salem. Our percussion finals with NESBA is the following Saturday, which is April 7th, and that's right here at Dartmouth High School in the Carolyn Lynch Activity Center. There's 30 groups performing. Starts at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and Dartmouth right now is scheduled to be on right about 6:50 in the afternoon. You get a chance to come out and watch the young men and women perform, not only from us, but from all the schools in the area. It's a great day of activity and entertainment. If you can't make it that day, our annual Night of Percussion is going to be on Friday, April 13th at 7 o'clock. We start out in the gym with the percussion groups. Mr. Runks usually brings in the 6th and 7th and 8th graders also, along with the high school and some individual students, and then the percussion will put on their winter show in the gym one more time before they get ready to head to Dayton for finals. And just this past week, the band was, the percussion was up at Triton Regional and at Byfield on Saturday. They took first place with a score of 96 and change. And then Sunday, they went back to Shepherd Hill up in Dudley and got a 97.05. So they're moving right along this year, getting ready for Dayton. Oh, and Dr. Gifford, I saw on the website the school choice application is there.
Yep, we're
so-
starting to get some applications. Yep.
That's all I have, ma'am.
Great. All right, does anybody have anything else? All right, so I was just looking, so our next meeting is April 9th, and I'm trying to remember when,
That's our joint meeting with the select board.
correct, but I'm also trying to remember when the town election is. It's the first, right? I'm wondering if you get to chair that meeting or I get to chair that meeting. Right, which I can't find it on the town. Does any of our reporters in the back know when the town election date is? Anyone? No? All right, the only reason, it's fine. We'll do the meeting and then maybe we'll meet either for a half hour after, probably.
Probably have a couple of things.
Couple things that we'll need to consider. and
Tuesday,
we'll-
April 3rd.
Tuesday, April 3rd. Oh, so we could meet before and reorganize. No, we'll meet afterwards and we'll do all that after.
Whatever.
We'll do the reorganization and we'll take on any other,
Articles that we need.
that
items,
need to
yeah.
get done. We won't have anything sort of big, but anything that needs to be done in a timely manner. Okay, so that is all of our business for this evening. So it's been so long since we had a meeting that we didn't have to go into executive session. We don't have to roll call, right? We just need a motion to adjourn, right?
So moved.
All right, do you have a second?
Second.
All right, motion by Mr. Nunes, second by Mr. Oliver. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Good night, everyone. 8:03.